Good morning, guys, and welcome to day 3 of my daily vlogs this week. So I'm sowing seeds this week and doing various other jobs that need doing before the start of the season. And I'm just in my other greenhouse. So for the last 2 days I've been in my aluminium greenhouse, which is in my second flower field. Today I'm in this wooden greenhouse that's in our garden. And this is actually Rob's granddad's greenhouse. I don't know how old it is. I'm not sure if it's maybe about 50 years old or something like that. It definitely needs a lick of paint because I haven't painted it since we actually put it back up. But it's not got glass in it, it's just polycarbonate. So that costs a lot of money when I put the plastic panels in to begin with, but it's been really good and I've not had any smashed glass. Last night, actually, after I finished filming, Rob wanted to just check that the greenhouse was okay because it looked like it was a bit on askew, the aluminium one, and we ended up trying to get it to level out a bit because it did look like a bit like it was leaning over to one side, and we couldn't get the glass in and we ended up smashing a couple of panes, which I was really annoyed about. But yeah, that greenhouse isn't exactly level for some reason, so I'm going to have to get some more glass and get that cut to put in that greenhouse. So I'm going to have to do something temporary whilst there's no glass in those areas. But what I thought I would do in this greenhouse this morning is just show you what I've already got on my benches in here. And a lot of these things need either planting out or potting on, so I need to find the time to do that at some point. But I'll just give you a quick tour of what's here. There's a few perennials and then there's a few annuals as well. So what have we got here? We've got a rigger on, that's for the garden really, that's not for cutting. That's the daisy type pot plant sort of thing. And then we've got, I think this is turd flax. Yeah. Cannon went turd flax in there. And then we've got some Lysmachia there. And some cornflowers there, some grasses over there. These are all in desperate need of potting on. And then I've got some penstemons that I started from seed here. And there's some geums here that I bought quite a few plants from a flower farming friend, and this just came off as like a side shoot, so I just potted them up to see if I could get extra plants, and I have done, so that's good. There's quite a few snapdragons over here. There's a tray of them there, there's some in that tray there, and then there's some in that tray there. I'm going to get rid of that because that just looks horrendous. Oh my god, it's rooted into the mat. I can't do that with one hand. But yeah, so there's quite a few geums and things that are just starting to shoot up again now that the weather's warming up. I've got some scabiosa there, some mallow there, there's some euphorbia there, and I think that it did actually all germinate and it's been eaten by slugs, which is a bit annoying. There's some buplurum in that tray there, which is apparently notoriously difficult to germinate in a tray, so I'm happy that that's happened, but I think it's easier to direct sow it. And then we've got some wallflowers and some dorcas. They can maybe go into the polytunnel. I've also got some more wallflowers that were potted on, so I'll show you what they look like compared to the ones that I've left in the seed tray. And then some nigella, which I actually managed to germinate last autumn. And then, I don't know if any of you watched my how to start delphiniums from seed video, but these are the delphiniums that I started from seed, and they've been in these pots since then, and they're starting to shoot up again this spring, which is great. So I'll get those planted out probably when it warms up a bit. And then over here I've got some corn cockle. And then there's some cuttings that I took at the end of the season. There's pelargoniums, some sage, and some salvia. And they did actually all strike, but then since then they've died. So I think maybe it's the cold weather, I'm not quite sure. And then I've got here some euphorbia, some spangle grass that I'm looking forward to. I'm hoping that once the weather warms up, that's going to come out of its dormancy and germinate, because you only get about 20 seeds in the packet. So I've ordered 2 more packets of those to sow this spring. And there's not much else going on in here. There's some ammi that I'm going to throw away because it just looks awful. So yeah, there's lots of potting on to do over here. So I'm just going to head over to the other greenhouse and get some more sowing done. I'm going to take the dog with me, I think, today, not the pig. And yeah, going to get lots done again today. Hopefully we'll get maybe everything that I want to sow for that field of hardy annuals. Anyway, then next month I'll start with sunflowers and zinnias, etc. The alpacas do not know what to make of the dog, and I'm just going to walk around just to make sure there's 100% no way that the dog can get out, because I don't trust him that he wouldn't chase after the alpacas and scare the life out of them. Just going to tie down this weed membrane because it's been flapping around for a few days now. It is really windy, so I don't know if it's going to stay pegged down, but I thought I would just show you. I prepared this last year, last spring I think, and I put compost down on top of it, and then it's been covered, so as you can see it's stayed quite nice and it's ready for planting whenever I'm ready. And then that bed there is where I had gourds, so that is also ready for planting. I think that's 18-inch spacing, and then the rest just needs pulling up. So I'm just sowing some aster seeds, and these are the ones that I really want to take care of this year, because I believe that asters don't like being left in the trays for too long and being stressed. So I'm going to really try and look after these asters. I'm going to try and make sure that throughout every stage of their life they're looked after and they get planted out into the field as soon as possible, and apparently this is going to reduce the risk of having short stems. So in the last couple of years when I've grown asters, they've been good, but they haven't been the big bushy plants that I was expecting to see, and I think that's because the seedlings were probably a little bit neglected, so fingers crossed for those. And I'm trying quite a few aster varieties this year. I've got aster Lady Coral Salmon Rose, aster Lady Coral Lavender, Lady Coral Light Blue, Flamingo at Sunset, Tower Chamois, Chrysanthemum Flowered, Limoncello, Lilac Mist and Apricot Dream. So I'm really looking forward to seeing all of those. So I'm cracking on with my seed sowing. I've got plenty of things done already this morning. I've got asters, rudbeckia, limonium, and I'm just on with Scabiosa, and I'm on with drumstick scabious at the moment. So do you remember yesterday when I was sowing the amaranthus and the antirrhinums? They were so small, but look at the size of these drumstick scabious seeds. And I love this drumstick scabious because it just adds like a nice textural element to the bouquets, and it's also going to be a good one for drying too. So I've just made a little divot in my seed compost in each cell, and I'm just popping them into there. Oops. So yesterday I tried to film a little bit of my seed sowing in the trays just in case you were interested, but that was when the audio didn't work so well. And basically I'll just make a small divot in the seed compost, and then I will, once I've sown the seeds, I'll just go along with the like flat hard part of my fingernail and just make sure that it is making contact with the compost, because if not, obviously it's not going to germinate because it's not going to get the moisture from the compost. And then I know that the seed is making good contact with it. And while the seed is germinating, while it's still in a seed form and it hasn't formed a little seedling yet, I'm going to be misting my seed trays I've just ordered a new hose pipe gun, so that's coming today. I ordered that on Amazon. Thank goodness for Amazon Prime. So yeah, that's coming today, and whilst the seeds are obviously waiting to germinate, I'll mist the seeds just to make sure that they are staying nice and moist in the seed trays, and then when they germinate I will start sowing from watering from below, so that the root system is nice and strong, and I know that the roots are going to start looking downwards for water, and that should produce some nice healthy seedlings. So I'm kneeling on the floor now because the dog has come and taken my seat. Can you see him? He's hanging off because he's way too big for it. So yeah, I'm midway through sowing seeds this morning. I think I've got about 1,000 done so far, and I thought I would just answer a couple more of your questions because I had a few more in the comments of yesterday's video, and I had some really lovely comments as well, not just questions, just some really nice messages just to say that people are enjoying my videos, so thanks so much for that. I woke up this morning and I had a big smile on my face when I was looking at those comments. So Neil asks, what is your perlite to compost ratio you use in the micro blocks? Yesterday, the day before yesterday, the mix that I used was 2 parts compost to 1 part perlite, but I actually think it would have been better if I did 3 parts compost and 1 part perlite. The blocks are okay, but as I said before, I do like to use coir in the soil block mix sometimes. So if I was going to be using coir as well, then I would be using 3 parts compost, 3 parts coir and 1 part perlite. So I don't think you really need to use much perlite because obviously it's quite bulky in the compost, but I think I said trial and error loads of times yesterday, I realised, but basically the whole thing is down to trial and error. And then Sam asks, how do you harden off your seedlings? I don't have a cold frame or anything. I'm quite brutal with my seedlings. I just chuck them out, and then if I know that it's going to be really cold, I'll bring them back into the greenhouse if we're going to get a cold night. So I'll bring them in the greenhouse during the night, and then I'll put them back out again during the day when the weather starts to warm up a bit. I don't actually own any fleece or anything like that, so seedlings really have to fend for themselves. Maybe that's something that I need to improve on in the future. I need to really protect things a little bit better. Rockier Ross asks, can you talk about seedling diseases, flower diseases, and what you can do about it? And I am not even going to attempt to answer this question because I don't feel very qualified to answer that question. I don't know a lot about diseases and things. When I come across them, I have to ask for help from other people. So I'm just going to bypass that question and move on to something else. The Fin Farm asks, the vlogs are spoiling us. Yes, I am spoiling you. Artichokes, what was the vase life like, and how about the greenery? The vase life is great because basically there's nowhere it can't wilt or anything because it's such like a woody structure. They do really good, they last for ages in the vase, and I also do use the foliage because it's nice bluey, greeny, greyy foliage, and I sometimes use it on the outside of bouquets and things, and I just love it as a whole, so I'm going to be growing lots more of that. Do you pinch your snaps? Yes, I do pinch them, so I will just take the tops off so that they can form shoots, and they're not just going to be really tall spikes. They're going to have multiple stems per plant. Maybe I'll talk you through that when I actually do it myself. But anyway, I'm going to crack on with sowing a few more seeds, and then it will be about lunchtime, so I'll go and get some lunch. Just before I go for my dinner, I've just sown a tray of phlox, and I'm going to grow these in the polytunnel because I found that they don't grow very well outside, but these don't like light to germinate, so I've seeded the tray, and I think I'm going to use another upturned tray on top of it, or you can use like a sheet of cardboard or something, and then I'm just going to take that off every couple of days just to check whether it needs watering and whether there's any germination, and then once it starts germinating I can take the cover off and then they can continue to grow on. So phlox seeds don't like light to germinate, they like to germinate in the dark. So I've had my dinner and I'm off to do some grouting now in my shipping container workshop, because Rob wants me to get it done so that he can put the log burner back. I'm going to do that, so I'm going to stop seed sowing for a minute, and then I'll come back this afternoon probably and do a bit more. So I've just finished grouting my tiles and I'm really pleased with the way they look. I've only ever tried tiling once before, and I'd smashed up some tiles and done a mosaic on a wall in the garden, and then I grouted it, so it didn't really matter if it went wrong, and I don't think I did that much of a good job when I did that. But I've done it on these tiles that were quite expensive in the shipping container, and I'm really pleased with the way that it looks. What I'm doing now is probably going to go and sow some more seeds just before the end of the day, but I'm just in this greenhouse because I wanted to show you these trays that I had made last year, which are basically just huge troughs. There we go, can you see that? It's about that deep, and it's made out of tin, and then the guy has just folded it and welded it up, and then I've put capillary mat in the bottom of the tray, so when I'm watering the little seedlings I can just pour a load of water straight into this tray and it will water everything from below. The only issue with it is that sometimes the seedlings root into the capillary matting, but that's not really a massive issue. You can just jiggle the trays around every couple of days and just make sure it's not rooting in there. And the other thing is that it's not quite level, so sometimes all the water will go towards the back of the trough or wherever the low point of it is. But I think the capillary matting helps with that, because obviously the water is able to move around on the mat as a result of the capillary matting. So I'm going to go and sow a few more seeds in the other greenhouse. I'll check to see if there's any more comments on yesterday's video and I'll get back to you on those. So yeah, let's go. So this greenhouse is filling up nicely. There's about 2,000 at least seeds in here now, so fingers crossed for all of those. And I've still got some space left on this bench here, and no doubt I will come up with some other way of putting seed trays in places. So I'm nearly there for the hardy annuals sowing that I'm going to be doing this February. So the other things that I need to sow are ones that prefer being sown in March, and it's March next week I think, so I haven't got too long to wait until I'm going to sow those. But next month I'll be sowing sunflowers. I might wait to sow the cosmos till March, I'm not sure. I'm going to sow the artichokes in March, and I'm going to sow helichrysum in March, amongst other things. So I'm nearly there with the sowing. I haven't got that much more to do. I'm just going to sow a couple more trays of grasses I think, and then that is the hardy annuals done for this field here, which is my 300 metre squared growing area. And then I need to go back into the other greenhouse to sow all of the hardy annuals that I'm going to be growing in that front field. Eventually I would like to be able to have that front field as a perennial growing area, and it's going to be a little bit less maintenance at the front there, and then probably keep the dahlias at the front there as well, because that field is on our farm driveway, so everybody who comes down to the farm gets to see that field. So I think that it's a nice advertisement. Plus my teepee is up there, so if you don't know, I have a big teepee where I run workshops and do events and things in there. So if I've got lots of nice dahlias and things like that, it provides a really nice backdrop for photographs in the teepee and things like that. So, and then this will probably stay as an annual field, but it's just a matter of building up the stock for that perennial field, so it's going to take me a while obviously. So whilst I'm doing that, I'll probably carry on sowing annuals in the beds that are free. So I've had a couple of comments from people. I had a good one from somebody about soil blocks. So yesterday I addressed how I would be choosing whether I was going to be using soil blocks or seed trays, and somebody, who was it, said I usually look at the root system when I'm thinking about what container to plant in. If the plant has a big taproot, they go in the container, but if it's fibrous, a soil block works well. And that's a really good tip. So there's quite a lot of plants that have big taproots, so they don't like disturbance too much, so they will probably not like it in the soil block environment, whereas they will probably thrive in a seed tray. So that's a good tip. So guys, I've sown the last of the seeds for the day. It's 4 o'clock now, so I'm gonna go home, I think, start editing, have my tea, and hopefully I'll get finished by a sensible time, not like last night. And I just thought that with that interesting tip that we just had there that was left in the comments about the soil blocks versus seed trays, it would be cool if you could put down an interesting fact or an interesting tip that you think would be helpful for other growers. So I will have a look at those, and if anybody's got any good suggestions, I will put those into tomorrow's video. So tomorrow I think that I'm going to head across to the other greenhouse and sow some seeds for the front field, and then just double check that there's nothing that I've missed for the first set of hardy annuals that I've sown this week. And then I might go on to digging up a couple of the dahlias and planting them up in crates ready for taking cuttings. Yeah, I really want to start clearing out the fields now because it's drying out. It's been really, really nice and warm today. What has the temperature been? It's 15 degrees now. It's really windy, but the wind has been really warm. And when I was in the shipping container earlier on, I was actually too hot, and I hope that's not going to be a bad sign, because picking flowers and storing them in the shipping container in summer isn't going to work if it gets hot in there. I do want to put aircon in there, but it's just not affordable for me at the moment. So maybe in summer when I'm making more money, I can put some aircon in there. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.